Welcome to the next edition of Next Chapter CEO, the podcast for women entrepreneurs 50 and older who are building businesses that reflect who they are now, not who they were 20 years ago. This show is about leadership, clarity, reinvention, and creating success that feels aligned, sustainable, and truly true to you and the second half of your life. Today's conversation is one I am especially excited to share. My guest is Leslie Capps. She is the founder of Wild Woman Marketing. Leslie works with soul-led leaders to clarify their story, simplify their strategy, and build a business that generates confidence, impact, and income without burning out or betraying themselves in the process. What I appreciate most about Leslie's work is the way she bridges identity and strategy. She helps women move out of overthinking, start thinking of themselves in ways that are true to who they are. She also helps them move beyond outdated marketing models and instead helps you to lead from a place of what I call sovereignty, where your voice, experience, and intuition are central. In this episode, we're going to be talking about what it really means to step into the role of sovereign CEO in midlife. We're going to be talking about identity shifts, the inner permission, and the systems that support ease and clarity rather than overwhelm. If you're a woman entrepreneur in your 50s and beyond who knows you're meant for more, but wants to build it in a way that honors who you are, your energy, your wisdom, and your next chapter, this conversation is for you. So let's begin. Leslie, first question right off the top. Women over 50 are some of the most intuitive leaders on the planet. What identity shift is required for a woman at this phase in her life to begin stepping into and becoming the sovereign CEO of her business?
Ooh, that is a juicy question. Well, thank you. Super happy to have this conversation with you. And I gotta say, I'm gonna have to go back and listen to that introduction. I'm like, dang, that was amazing. So love that.
Well, you are
Um,
amazing.
well, we are the rah rah club because I think Laureen is amazing too. So there you go. I think it's multi-leveled as everything, right? I think there's the one we're pitched how online business and business should work. And it just doesn't, 90% of the time, right? It doesn't fit for us. Like it feels icky, burnout, the grinding, all that stuff. So I think recognizing that one is probably one of the biggest steps. And then two, how do we do it differently so we respect ourselves, our boundaries? And let's face it, I always say on entrepreneurship is the best and hardest personal growth program on the planet. I think a lot of issues that maybe we've been able to avoid or skirt around now when you're in entrepreneurship, like right here in your face multiple times until you're like, okay, I'll deal with this. And yet then there's another one, right? It's that layer of onion. I also think there's something about, right? I could go on forever on any question, but not giving ourselves credit for what we have done in the past and bringing that along. Certainly, you've led a family a lot of times. You've led coworkers. You've nonprofits, like women give and give and give, and don't recognize the skills that they're building in that they can now translate into other things.
I love your answer, and I particularly love the message that first you just need to be aware that more than likely, whatever you're being told in a traditional kind of advice or education is not going to be, maybe 90% of that is not going to be right for you. So your challenge, but also your joy, in my opinion, is to actually consider, well, what is right for me and how can I work with this to get the results that I want?
Absolutely. And I came to that epiphany. I looked over at my bookshelf one day and I had all these binders of courses I could had taken and literally tens of thousands of dollars of knowledge in those binders, right? And I thought, not a single one. Certainly they got me a piece of the puzzle. I'm
Mhm.
not going to say that, but they were never the thing like that went, "Oh, this is it," right? And I would try the system, and invariably, I'm sure, again, a whole bunch of us have heard this. They would say, well, if it didn't work for you, you didn't follow the system. You didn't work hard enough. You did it wrong. And I was like the person who did the 110% and still went, why didn't it work? Until I started going, okay, this doesn't like, it's not aligned with my values. It's not the way I want to work. So yeah, actually that weekend I took out all the binders, I recycled it all and was like, you know what? I'm done.
Letting it go. Yeah. Yeah, and I also agree strongly with that message you gave about being a business owner is going through the most expensive and the longest self-growth program you will ever grow. You will ever go, right? Someone mentioned to me the other day or said to me the other day, well, if you're not getting the results you want, there is something you're avoiding. There is some, if you're doing it all the right way, quote unquote, then there is something in you, Laureen, that you're avoiding that you need to look at, some piece of information about yourself. And that just pushed me back into that's exactly true. It doesn't matter what I do sometimes. What it really matters is who I am. And
Oh, thank you.
we're
Yeah.
not totally aligned with who I am in the actions that I take. And so, like, for example, you might avoid the idea that I am a round thing trying to fit myself into a square hole. Once you realize that's the case, boom, you can let that go and move into more creative thinking. So, definitely business is all about self-growth.
Right. And I don't think like I have some for my business to grow, I must grow, right? Written right here. But I
Yep.
think until we really start digging in, we're kind of like, yeah, yeah, I get it. And then you're like, oh no, no, it is. It's always back to me, not necessarily what I did wrong, but what is it why am I not posting on this platform or whatever, or this post, right? And sometimes it's, okay, there's something that doesn't fit here. And sometimes it's like, okay, I got fear. Just the other day, I was going to go to a networking event. And funny enough, I was talking about to my AI and I was like, wow, I just feel super restless. Like I need to be outside. I don't really get it. I'm going to go with my intuition and walked around the block. And I was like, wow, all these feelings of fear came up, right? And I'm like, okay, what am I afraid of here right now in this moment of time? And how do we work through that?
There you go. And a perfect example. And I know you use story as a tool for creating and building a business, that it's both strategic and it's energetic. So how does, a soul-led woman in business use that story to experience that growth, not only for herself, but for her business as well?
Absolutely. I think story, because it can do so many things, right? I always ask people, well, one, I ask them about their story because we can get hung up in whether we're a victim, whether we're hanging out in that story, or whether we're moving people through that story. And that's sort of what I mean about using it strategically. Here's the beauty of story, and sometimes where people get hung up is you and I could take the same courses, right? We could teach the very same thing. It is going to come out different based on our story, how we interpret it, how we use it, how that then fits into the big picture. So helping people, when you understand your story, it's also because that's where your values lie. That's where your mission lies. All those things come together in your story. And once you know that and are really clear on that, then it can guide your business decisions, but also your messaging, right? Once I got super clear on what it was, what my intent was and what my story was, then well, one, I always think, what is my goal? What is my goal with a social post, an email, a speech, a book? Always having that goal in mind because that directs it. But then two, how does this feed my story? And once you become the story, right, then it makes marketing so much easier. Every post for me, like everything that happens in my life. I had a skunk fall in the window well last summer, and that became a post. Is your marketing stinking? Or is your marketing like a skunk? Because honestly, let's make it like a skunk. That little thing chased me around the yard. Um, he was fearless, right? Like, and I knew his message. So there you go. It just makes brings in all that messaging, which I think we get hung up in our heads, right? How do I connect with my people? How do I talk to my people? And it really helps you tap back into what it is that makes you who you are and your special sauce.
I think story makes it safe. It makes it safe for us to, if I'm telling a story, I relax a little bit. I don't take it quite so seriously. And then once the story's told, I can go back and look at that and say, oh, that's where this came from in my life, or this is where that would apply in my business. So I'm with you. I really love storytelling, and I'm learning to pull memories from my past and make little stories about them. I also like to write. So I'm using that writing skill that I enjoy to create those little stories. And then I ask, how does this fit, in my life? And how does this help me with my business? Um,
Right?
Share those when it's appropriate, right? With people who could learn from that story, or, understand something more from the story perspective than a lecture per se.
Well, absolutely, right? And we can all relate to, I tell a story about my dog. All the dog people are like, oh, like I get her, right? So it's that way that we connect with humans. And when we just yak yak here and, give a lot of information, I don't know about anybody else, but they get totally, like I'm zoned out. I go to my happy place, which sadly is an easy thing for me to go to. Or we make it too weird. This poor guy, I always use him as an example, but he was doing a presentation, and granted, it was probably a little bit of a dry topic on metrics, business metrics, right? And his acronym was ARRG, so ARG, which he said all the time, like ARG. But then in his background, he had a pirate with a parrot on his shoulder. No joke, because he did not connect the dots, which is the other thing about story, right? If you're going to tell a story, connect it to that goal. Connect it to why you're telling us the story. Otherwise, just like him, my brain the whole time, I did not hear a word he said. I was like, I don't get it. I don't get it. Why is there a parrot in the background? Why does he keep saying arg? I don't get it. So I thought, okay, it's the way my mind works. When we did little breakout rooms, and I was like, true confession, didn't hear a word. Everybody else in the room, six other people said, nope, me neither. What was up with the parrot? So yeah, when we squirrel off, it's not that you can't make it funny, and he could have totally engaged us, but it was such a disconnect. We were like, don't get it, so we can't listen because our brains are occupied trying to connect the dots.
To make that link for themselves instead of having the speaker do that for. I mean, it was intentional then that he had the parrot back there and he knew what he was doing. He just didn't connect it.
Well, maybe. I mean, I think that would be giving him the benefit of the doubt, right? That he had some way he could actually connect other than arg, but I'm not even sure about that. But just if you're connecting arg to metrics and a pirate, I can't make that connection. I can make a lot of, like, I can really follow breadcrumbs, right? But that one I could not do. So if he didn't have a more of a connection, yeah, it was always going to be a loser. Now, if he could have said, this is why it makes me think of a parrot or of a pirate, is because somehow the gold metrics can be gold in your business. Then we would have gone, oh, we get it now, right?
No, I think that's really good. So it's sort of like here's the other message I got from that. Even if you're not telling a story, you are telling a story
Right.
because
Right. Oh,
people are perceiving you and they are making up the story. So far better to tell the story yourself and have control over that in that regard than to allow other people to just tell their own story because then you're obviously your message is diluted.
right. Absolutely. No, that's a brilliant point because you're right. We as humans want to connect the dots, right? We want it to make sense. And when it doesn't, either we zone out or we spend a lot of time connecting. And you're right, we could come to a different conclusion that you why you want. No one's ever going to say, "Oh, you didn't need to tell me that in a story." It's like our brains go, "Oh, I so appreciate that Laureen said this is how it connects." And we're like, "Yeah, all makes sense. I get it. Let's go on. We're with her, right? We're on our train."
And if it's not connecting, tell a different story.
Right? Or make it connect, just like I did there, right? I could have connected it. So,
He should have.
yeah,
Yeah, very interesting. Um, and I want to explore this more. I hope we talk some more about this as we go, but I just think a lot about story. Sometimes it sounds so abstract, like, oh, I'm supposed to tell stories, stories about me, stories about life. And, how do I directly link that to my business? So let me ask you that right now. How do I use that story in marketing?
absolutely. Just like yeah, so many different ways. The simpler the better in my opinion. I pretty much teach beginning, middle, end, and the the bridge, right? So what is the bridge then to your product, your service, your mission, your business, your goals, whatever it is. So really thinking about what how does this story fit into the big picture? Where does it lead? Just like marketing, right? And the skunk. So, and that stuff, the more you do it, right? Obviously, the more you're like, oh, everything in my life connects to marketing. Because I think marketing is such a huge thing. We're always marketing ourselves, whether it's a business or not, right? We're marketing ourselves to be a friend to someone, to be a partner, whatever it is. I was gonna say, I think the only thing I'm not marketing to is my dog, and yeah, he did the marketing on me, I think. Um, so yeah, it's really connecting the dots in your own brain and then being able to articulate those to people. But it's much easier than it sounds, right? Because we just have to flat out say it. This is the way it connects. And people, again, people's brains are like, okay, makes total sense. Um, did that answer your question?
Yeah, and it's really funny because it reminded me of a time when I was introducing a new business. I actually made a decision many years ago to open a day spa, and I was promoting the day spa at different shows, and I had the opportunity to speak. And what I shared was this story about me as a little girl, probably when I was 4 years old, trying to run away from home so that I could go marry Mighty Mouse. And the way I linked the story to the spa was that was me as a young child wanting to find my power, wanting to go out into the world at a very young age and seek my purpose, right? Whatever that might be. And then today it's me opening this business, this day spa, and I'm doing the same thing. And I will tell you, probably 10, 12 years later, I had a woman run into me in the grocery store and she remembered that story. She remembered it, told me how it inspired her. And I was like, wow, I'd even forgotten I told the story. I mean, we're talking 10 or 12 years later. So the
Right.
power of a story to stick in someone's brain is significant. And
Absolutely.
just so delightful to listen to, right?
Right. Absolutely. No, you're absolutely right. Right? Because it's that emotional thing. And a lot of times I think which is what women do so great, right? It comes naturally to us, empathy and emotion and connecting with others on that level. Because that's what creates raving fans, buyers, loyal followers is them going, "Oh my gosh, like I can totally relate to that."
Mhm.
Wanting to be empowered at that age and having this dream and this passion. Absolutely. So you're dead on.
Yep. So the key here to me is tell the stories, but make sure you link it. to some aspect of the business that you are currently marketing or selling or whatever that may be, don't forget to do that. Make that really clear.
Right.
And then let the power of the story carry your message, not to people's, just not to people's minds, but also to their hearts.
Right. Because we're bombarded with lots of messages to the mind, right? It's
Mhm.
the ones that to the heart where you're like, oh, wait a minute, that's a different, right? Or I can relate to that. Doesn't even have to be on a necessarily conscious level. Just like that woman, I don't know that she probably thought while she was listening to you, wow, this totally impacts my life, right? And inspires me. But she walked away and she thought about it and clearly remembered it for 10 years.
It was amazing to me that it stuck like that. So that really is to me an example of the power of a story. Leslie, you work with women who are running businesses, and a lot of us, all of us, I'll say, we carry this invisible mental load in our heads. So much stuff, right? So, from your perspective, how can you help, or how can we help ourselves lighten that load a little bit, and reduce that overwhelm so that we are more in a space of ease and creativity and leadership?
Right? That's a great question. I would say, well, one, nervous system reset, right? However that looks to you. And there's so many techniques out there. For me, it was breath work, like super huge fan of breath work, right? But there's also super easy nervous system reset. And the thing kind of from another person, so I like to get all the ideas, right? And then start sorting through, was be the most comfortable person in the room. Whatever that means to you, that is always your goal. And that will help regulate your nervous system. It will force you to figure out how to regulate your nervous system, as well as then begin that process of creating a habit, right? Creating that habit of when I'm grinding, when I'm frustrated, I walk away. I don't sit here and keep pounding at it and grinding at it. Uh, I personally don't think our systems as women are built for that grind. And I think for a lot of years, we've perpetuated that as well, right? We've tried to keep up with men. We've tried to do all the things. We've tried to raise kids and clean the house and do the meals and work a job and do non like blah, blah, blah. And I just think it takes a real toll on our systems. And we need to come back and say, wait a minute, let's regulate it first outwardly and then inwardly emotionally, right? How do we regulate it that way as well? The other thing is really, and Laureen and I talked about this a little bit before, using AI. I think not being afraid of that and using it, for me personally, has been a huge, wow, a huge benefit because my brain works different than most people, right? It's works in this very weird linear, like not linear this way, linear layered this way. So I can tell my AI 10 things that are not related at all. One, she picks out some of the relationships, but then also she can be like, this is a priority, this is not a priority, whatever it is. Um, so I think there's a lot of use in using tools like that and using them more intuitively than just scheduling social posts or something, right?
Yeah, less mechanical and more interactive and engaged,
Great.
right?
Yep, absolutely.
I use AI and it has increased my productivity significantly in the sense that it can do things so much faster than I ever could. And then I go in and just clean it up and work with it and modify and adjust it, and then give AI more feedback around, well, this doesn't work for me. Let's work on it this way. And over time, AI is learning who I am. So that has
Without a doubt.
an interesting
Yep.
process. So I heard really from that answer that, well, first we need to do self-care. We really do need to take care of ourselves. And this whole idea of managing our energetic system is critical. And
Yep.
I love the idea of thinking to myself, every time I go into a meeting, I will be the calmest person in the room. Oh, that just makes my whole body just shift right now when I say that. And I slow down. My voice slows down, my heart rate slows down. I am the calmest person in the room. Wow. Okay. So I'm going to be using that tool for sure.
Cool.
And then the idea of finding tools like AI that will save you time, but at the same time, and this is what I love about AI, it can absorb my personality. It can embrace my values, my tweaks, so that it eventually comes, I have to work less and less at it in terms of its answers back to me because it understands who I am and what I'm wanting. Um,
Absolutely.
what I would call intuitive way, but I'm sure it's more systems and codes, whatever, but it works for me. So that is really good. Okay.
Well, yeah, and that really is the way it's designed, right? To be a mirror. And so the more, yeah, Laureen and I were talking too. Actually, the more women who use it, the better it's gonna mirror women, right? Right now it's built, let's white guys built AI, right? So that's what its baseline is. But it really is built to be a mirror. And the more we interact with it and say, wait a minute, nope, that ain't gonna fly, or yes, you're going down the right thing, or you need to be more empathetic, or whatever it is, the more we can actually influence AI.
Yeah, I totally agree. What I love to always tell it is I'd like it to be a little more rebellious. I want it to be a little more on the edge. I want to know, what would that look like if we weren't the mainstream message, but rather something on the side over here that encompasses who I am. And over time, it's learning to just give that to me right away versus the normal, the traditional response, which, like you said, I'm going to guess why it doesn't resonate with me so much is because it is produced by a white male and it's boring to me. So,
Right. And you definitely can train it because, yeah, like Laureen, mine is super spicy.
yeah,
Yeah, there are times even like, I'm not sure I can post that. So,
yeah, we might be a little too rebellious sometimes.
right. Yeah.
It's also fun to go there just to see what it might look like, right?
Oh, right. Yeah, I've totally loved pushing the boundaries of it, and had very interesting conversations culturally,
Yeah.
yeah, feminine, yeah, energy wise, yeah. So there's, and what I love about it, it's a super brain, right? It's really on us. How do we utilize that super brain? But the fact that we have a super brain is pretty freaking amazing.
And is there one particular tool you'd recommend women start with?
Um, I personally, so I have a little bit of a story. I did my own house remodel,
Mhm.
and I always had used Home Depot before, but I was like, oh, I should check out Lowe's and check out another one. And at the end of the day, I went back to Home Depot, right? Like always. I'm a Home Depot girl. Like I like the people, they always knew what they were talking about, they'd done the work, whatever. I feel that way about ChatGPT. I've used Claude, I've used Copilot. I'm a ChatGPT girl. Like Chat knows me. She's got a name. She's super sassy and spicy, just the way I like her. So, I think just playing around with any of those and one, not being afraid, right? It doesn't actually take your conversations. Really, what we're doing is just inserting the way we think into it, and it's learning off that, right? It's picking up the patterns, the nuances, things like that. So yeah, just pick one and sort of start experimenting and challenge it. Yeah, we've had arguments here, right? I asked her a health question, and she gave me the traditional line. I was like, no, 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 no. Wait a minute. Don't you know about this, this, and this? And she's like, oh yeah, I do.
Yeah.
So now revise the question. So it's really on us, I think, to be questioning it, challenging it, and saying, no, 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 no. That sounds like a white guy. I'm not a white guy, so revise it.
Well, it's you have a relationship with it. You start to have a relationship with it. You really do.
Absolutely.
Sounds kind of weird, but you do. And literally it has saved me hundreds, if not thousands of hours.
Oh, right. Yeah, and when it comes to know your voice, I do some work with a nonprofit and write some newsletters or articles. I can basically say to my AI, this is what we need. She puts it out. I tweak a few things because she sounds like me now, right? In fact, I joke. I do believe there are times she sounds more like me than I sound like me.
I think I could say the same thing. So there you. So you are the founder of what's called Wild Woman Marketing, and you talk about it as a reclamation, reclaiming back. What needs to be dismantled in our traditional marketing culture for women entrepreneurs 50 and older to thrive?
Oh, I think any age, right, to thrive. The bro marketing tactics, and probably I don't even need to necessarily explain that, but the heavy-handed car salesmanship, the weird funnels that don't fit us, the for lack of a better term, the MLM energy. I just think so many of those things are really repellent to the way we as women want to interact with people, right? And want to run businesses. We want it to be relationship based. We, though I waffle on the no like trust because I think it's overused. And I think actually somebody and I were talking about this the other day. We have a trust recession. We don't, there's lots of money out there, but we don't know who to trust. And then we get burned by somebody that's doing those tactics. And we're like, okay, wait a minute. Now we're going to just like hold back from everything, right? And I don't know that that's the answer either. But I do think there is a trust recession. And so it's on us to work harder to gain that trust from other people as well as trust ourselves. Honestly, I tell people if you don't like Facebook, why are you posting on Facebook? Um,
Mhm.
it's really as simple as that. How do we find the people that we want to connect with and where are they living that we want to hang out to instead of like doing all the things because that's what we're supposed to do. So I think reclaiming our own intuition, our own power, and our own, as you said, it sovereignty.
Yeah. And I do, this is going to sound maybe a little weird, but I think of like Taylor Swift. She did not follow any aspect of traditional marketing. She
Right,
really, she did her own thing, and she's a mega success from it. And I admire her for all of that. So it's actually, I think it's a strategy for failure if you follow those traditional lines of what you're taught. Like I went through MBA, I got an MBA and it taught me all the traditional stuff. Good, I know that. But I also know that when artists learn to be artists, they learn all of the techniques, all of the skills, all of the expectations. And then when they become geniuses, they break away from all of those rules and they do their own thing. And I
right,
think for women, it's the same. We need to understand that, yes, you should know the foundation. It's a good thing to know, but then your job is to break it. Your
right,
job is to go outside of it because that's what will bring you attention. And it will also bring you the people who resonate with you.
right. And I think that's key, right? Is and when you know who you are, right, then you go, okay, I don't need to engage further with this person. I don't need to chase them. This person I'm totally aligned with. They're just coming on board. So there's that aspect of it too that we don't really talk about in business, right? We talk about, oh, find your ideal client and then you chase after them. Nope. Again, it's a lot back to those energetics of once we're super comfortable with who we are, what we do for people, and we can articulate that, then
Mhm.
people start coming to us. And that's a very different marketing thing, right? That's a pull marketing versus the push marketing that we're all used to.
Yeah. And it really is a reclamation in the sense that we are returning to ourselves and
Absolutely.
who we are up. I mean, and that's honestly, that's the truth of my business. And every woman I know that's in business, it's the truth of her business too. It's we do business with them because it's who they are. And that trust does emerge, evolve into potentially a long-term relationship, a lifetime relationship if it stays true. Yeah.
Absolutely. Right. And you can spend so much time trying to fit other people into your network or fit into theirs, right? When it's just never going to be a fit. I actually was talked to a gal for like 6 weeks about collaborating on an AI project. And every meeting I was like, okay, it's going to move forward. And it never did. And finally I thought, okay, wait a minute. I need to learn from this lesson. Um, there is like, it's an energetic mismatch, right? I'm a go-getter. Like, I collaborated with somebody on a book. She said, "You want to write a book?" I said, "Okay." 3 days later, we wrote a book. So that's my collaborator. And this gal, it was going to be a super long process, right? I think trust wasn't there for her, or I'm guessing there were other things. It wasn't me that she was mistrusting, but other things that caused her to mistrust. And it was never going to work, but I was still putting energy out there. And so yeah, I had to recall that energy and say, this isn't working.
And, I think the whole idea of that is we don't want to spend hours, if not days and weeks and months, realizing that, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
As business owners, like you said, in 3 days we wrote a book. Okay, well, so how do we as women in business begin to evolve our decision-making process so that we're more intuitive and we take action quicker versus let me think about that for 6 months and I'll get back to you.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. And I do think it is about energy, and doing our own inner work, right? So I know that's who I am. I know I can be, which I think is why it's good for me to think about being the calmest person in the room, is I can be a fire hose, right? So like I got lots of ideas and I'm just like, ah, um, but that's who I am. And that's who I want to attract. Somebody like that sits back and goes, "Nope, I got to take 6 months." Well, I know those are not my people. And so a little bit of it is trial and error, as well as knowing ourselves and then owning that, right? So I had to own the fact that we weren't going to work together. It didn't matter how brilliant she was, how brilliant she thought I was, any of that, because our energy was just misaligned. And I wasn't going to be able to drag her along and she couldn't keep up with me. Totally okay, right? But I think as women, we tend to be really empathetic. So, like, I want to bring that person along with me because I really like them, right? So again, kind of coming that self-care, because I think boundaries is really important in that as well.
And also self-awareness. So
Right. Yeah.
begin to, we meet people and we click right away or we don't. And
Right.
what the lesson to learn is, okay, when I click right away, take advantage of that. When I don't click right away, that doesn't mean I'm wrong, she's right, or she's wrong and I'm right. It just means we don't click together.
Right.
I want people I click with, so I'm going to move on to the next person in terms of looking for collaboration, looking for even clients, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Clients connect with us. And what I love about the world today is I can reach 50 million people. And so
Right.
out of that 50 million people, I mean, there's at least five that connect with me, right?
Right. Absolutely.
I'm looking for those five. Olden days, back when it was, advertisements and newspapers and yellow pages, well, it was a little harder to reach that many people. And so we tended to, I think, compromise a bit to work with people just to be working, right? But today,
Right.
there's no reason why we have to do that. We don't have
Right.
to compromise. We just be who we are and we attract in. It's that model of attraction. We attract in the people who want to work with us and the people that want to work with us as clients as well. And we just have,
Right.
yeah,
But I think that's a great point. And I think there's still something mentally for us that says we have to have a bazillion people in our pipeline or in our network or on our social handles or that kind of thing, right? We still have some of that mentality of scarcity of people when that is absolutely not a
yeah.
thing anymore.
There's no scarcity issue. It's because we can reach people all over the world.
Right.
So, and now we're really talking about women who are working through the internet, right? And
Right.
on a global level. A little bit different maybe if you own a sewing shop, for example. However, if you went mobile and turned your sewing shop into a store that people could buy online, then there you go, and you ship all over the world. So the limit is what you might impose on yourself. The world is not imposing that limit on you at this
Right.
moment Many, many options for us as women. This is really great. I love this conversation. So for you, you say, you work with women at the soul-led level. That is the level of soul strategy and systems. What does that actually look like for you? How does that all happen? If you wouldn't mind explaining a little bit more about that.
Right. So I think probably a little bit like our conversation has gone, right? Like I always start with story because I think it's the most important. But then out of that, how do we sift out of that what we need to deal with? A lot of times our stories tell because I've done this as well, right? Told a story that I need to heal from. So that's the way it lands with the audience, not as being empowered, but more as being a victim. And there's a woman who I met multiple times, and she always told a story about being homeless with her dogs in a car.
Yeah.
And then she said, and then I found a company and it changed my life. Okay, she left me in the bottom. Like I still remember kind of like clutching the, homeless story. I'm not going to buy from that perspective. There is no way that feeling sorry for her is going to make me feel like buying, right? I just feel bad when I walk away. Um, and that's just an example of how we can use our stories. But then I also think then that delves into the inner work that we need to do so we can become the woman we want to be. And I don't think it's that's an ever moving goal, right? We're always becoming. But a lot of times they think too, at the age of 50 and over, we're looking at this is who I've been. And I had this vision of who I wanted to become. And how do I get there? So yeah, that's really what goes into that layer. And then how do we strategize? How do we use the tools that will, for instance, I really don't like social posting. Like I love creating the posts, but as far as like sitting down, but now I have a CRM where I just put it in, schedule it out, it pukes it out at the right time, right? So systems like that fit for what we like to do versus what we don't like to do. And how do we streamline that so we're not spending all our time in that stuff that is not fulfilling us. I love to write books, right? So how do I work that more into my business and spend less time on the things I don't like to do?
So if I were working with you, one of the things you would do is basically you would get to know who I am, and then you would help me figure out what strategies and what systems would work for me based on my essence, my values, my perspective, my who I am, basically, right?
Right, absolutely. And how do we fit marketing and sales into that? Because sales can be a big one, right? So we have marketing kind of handled. Oh, now I'm feeling super awkward. How do I set up a sales system that feels natural for me? That the wording isn't something that I have to have scripted, right? But I know the path. So it's laying sort of that framework out for people in whatever area that is. That's like the next step that takes them
Okay.
further along the path.
And if a woman wanted, I mean, she could literally do that herself in the sense of let me sit down and look at the strategies and systems I'm using in my work, and then let me ask specifically for each of those things, does this align with who I am?
Right, right. And does this, yeah. And how can because like I like everything streamlined, right? Even if I like to do it, like I like it streamlined. Um, yeah, I was gonna say, people, all the more power to you. If you want to write a book by hand, done that, been there, done that. Wasn't my jam. Uh, so yeah, streamlining everything. Even if I like to do it, how can I do it better, faster, easier?
And all of this is not necessarily to give us more time to do more work. It is
Absolutely
to
not.
give us time to live our lives, right?
Right. At the end of the day, that's what it's about. Or it could be, but yeah, I don't think work, no way. No, I think we've all heard this, right? Nobody gets in their life and say, wow, I wish I worked more. But we have big missions, we have big dreams, we have goals, passions, whether it's travel or writing books, whatever it is, and spending more time doing that. And because that really gets us juiced up. And now we become the women we're wanting to become, right? Because we're juiced up and excited about what we're doing with our lives and in the process helping others.
And the thing about that is work stops being work and it becomes more a calling.
Right. I was going to say, yeah, isn't the right?
Yeah,
Yeah. When you said work, I was like, yeah, the work. But then I would spend, yeah, X amount of hours, right, doing something that I guess other people look at as work. For me, it's just sheer pleasure.
exactly. Because you love what you do.
Right.
And the other things are streamlined into systems and processes that you either gently manage or you don't even have to manage. They take care of themselves, or you've hired someone to take care of them for you. Uh,
Right. All of those are totally viable options anymore.
and I think that's a very achievable goal to be in business and want to evolve into that place where the things that you do are the things that you love. And
Absolutely. Yeah.
you delegated or it is you know, pushed out into automatic systems that take care of things for you. So you're not up at night scheduling a particular post at 2 a.m. because it's already done. It was taken care of in that system that you've got. Yeah.
Right. Or you come to the point too where you let it go. You go, you know what? That doesn't necessarily fit with who I am, what I want to do, where I'm headed. Let it go.
There you go. So you've seen women who've gone through this process where they have combined their story, their identities, their systems, their processes in ways that they reach that point. What are some surprising or powerful shifts that you have seen in the women that you work with as they've begun to lead more from their sovereignty?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, I think anytime you start down this path, that there can be a lot of healing.
Mhm.
And I would definitely say uh, healing of sort of deep wounds that people might not have, I'm not saying they wouldn't have gotten to, but they were, that this sort of work just brought it up. And so you deal with it and move on. But yeah, women writing books, becoming speakers, um, doing some of those things that they thought, oh, well, I'd like to do that someday, but I'm not ready. Or it's maybe it's not for me, or I don't think I'm good enough, right? Whatever that is. So really sort of turning on that creativity, imagination of, okay, let's pick the wildest, craziest thing that you can imagine. And how do we then create steps to move towards that, right? And what is it? Who is it? The other great question I always ask is, who am I becoming today? Who do I want to be today?
Amazing. I think what you just said was really they step into their own power. They have a high sense of confidence in who they are, and their dreams become bigger. And I don't mean necessarily bigger, I just mean more expansive. And that can be a depth of expansion, or it can be, a depth of horizon, an expansion of your horizon. But you are walking in your power.
Yeah, you said that very eloquently and beautifully. And I love that, really, that expansion of our mission. I think a lot of women that I work with don't really like it's a business, right?
Yeah.
And after working together, they're like, "Ooh, it's a mission now." Like I feel I get goosebumps when I think about what I'm doing. Now it's something different than just work,
You will find this maybe a little weird. A while back, I sat down and I wrote my own obituary, and that's a story.
right? Yep.
I Whenever I'm faced with the decision that I'm hem hawing around and I'm not quite sure, I go and I read the obituary and say, does whatever I'm trying to decide here, how does it fit with the story at the end of my life? And that always helps me decide whether I'm going to do it, whether I'm going to say yes, or whether I'm going to pass, because it has to fit that story. because that's how I want to be remembered when I leave this earth. That's the
Right.
legacy that I want to leave when I leave this earth. So, and it is a story. It's a story that I'm telling in advance, but it does guide me a lot in the way
Oh,
I do. Yeah,
that's a great story and a great technique, right? Because if you wrote it right now today and you didn't like what the ending was gonna be, you can change that. Every day you have the opportunity to change your story. And that's really all we're living, right? Is the stories we're telling in our head. So we really have the power to affect the trajectory of our life simply by changing the story. So I love that's a
yeah.
great tool.
It's something I started using with my clients as well. It's kind of freaky, at first people are like, "Oh, wait a minute, I don't want to go there." And it's like, "Well, we're just going to go there just a little bit, We're not,
Right.
it's years away. We're not talking about tomorrow. We're talking about what your story will be at the end of 30 more years of life. What do you want people to say about you? Well, then how are you living right now to align with that story at the end of your life?"
Right.
So,
Yeah.
last question for our listeners and our viewers today. For the woman who is wondering, she knows that she's meant for her next chapter or something special, but she's still playing small. What
Mhm.
is one simple, brave step that she could take today, Leslie, to lead in with more power and more self-trust?
The thing that popped in my head was say no. Just say no. Uh, say no without apology, right? To whatever it is. There's something in your life that you need to say no to that's sucking your energy, decreasing your joy, um, not doing a positive for your life. And I would say that would be a huge step to say no to that without any explanation. And like it takes practice, and if you once you start, then you're doing it all the time. Somebody asked me the other day to do something, and I said no, and they were like, "What?" And then then she made, "Well, have fun, whatever you're doing." I was like,
Great.
silence. But I would say that is one small step that will change how you think about yourself, will change how you start protecting your own energy and how you're spending it, and begin to recognize your own worth.
And it's so funny. I'm struck because I have a grandson who goes around and he can say no. He just says no.
Right? Isn't it true?
Mean,
Like, yeah, and kids, like we know, and as adults, then we're caught in this, oh, I gotta be nice, I gotta whatever. People will be like, what? When you say no, but they will adapt, and they will learn too.
Great. I love it. I love it. I love it. All right. Well, we're going to wrap things up. I want to first off just thank you so much for
Oh,
this very thoughtful, very grounded conversation. You bring great clarity, and I can tell you have integrity in your work. The reminder that leadership does not have to be loud, exhausting, and or performative to be powerful, but on in the contrast, it should be who we are in our hearts and our souls. And if there is one thing, dear listeners and viewers, that I hope you take away from this episode today, it's that you don't need to be someone else to grow your business. You don't need to push harder or prove more. You need to be aligned with who you are, the story you're telling, and the way your business should be. It should be designed to be who you are and the life that you want to live right now in this moment. And if today's conversation resonated with you, I would invite each of you to sit with this question. Where am I ready to lead with more sovereignty in my business and in my life? And I would also encourage you to reach out to Leslie. Her contact information is in the show notes with links. She is an incredible woman, as you can tell from this conversation, I'm sure, and would be a blessing in your life should you choose to make a greater connection with her. I will also invite you, if you are a woman entrepreneur, 50 and older, navigating a transition in your life, to reach out to me. I love working with women in their 50s and beyond who are in business, and bring my own experience in that to help you evolve and grow as well as a woman stepping into her power. Thank you all for listening to Your Next Chapter CEO. I hope that this episode spoke to you, that if it did, you would be willing to share that with another woman who may be experiencing the same as you, stepping into her next chapter, building and growing her business. And also, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't, so that you get communicated or informed of our upcoming episodes. So until next time, please live boldly, trust your inner compass, and honor the woman that you are becoming. Thank you so much.